In studio. Some call him the Kramer of Georgia politics, political analyst Stephen Lawson. Stephen, good morning, brother. How are you?
Well, yeah, I feel like politics is kind of like Game of Thrones in a way.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
100%.
Easy transition.
And we just got Tyrone Lannister to enter the race. I'm just talking about a powerful figure, not a personality comparison to Mr. Jackson, but a seismic shift in the Republican race for Georgia. The richest man in Westeros, and now the richest man in the political race, and we're still feeling the reverberations of his entrance into the race.
Yeah, certainly. We're a week into the Rick Jackson campaign, and he's continued to dominate the airwaves. He had a Super Bowl ad that a lot of people saw on WXIA 11 Alive here in Atlanta. So he's continued to pepper the airwaves. I think by latest accounts, he's spending around $4 million a week.
Wow.
Which is going to leave a mark and make a dent in this race. Burt Jones, who has the Trump endorsement in that race, is also up with his first television ad touting his endorsement from President Donald Trump. So it is clearly the gloves are off in this race. They are off to the races, literally and figuratively, and it's going to be a barn burner for the rest of the way.
We do. Again, this was the earth-shattering news politically, but now we're actually starting to get some poll numbers in that you shared with me. Where did this poll come from? Who backed it, and what does the poll say about this race?
Yeah, not sure who backed it. It was a public poll that came out yesterday that essentially had Rick Jackson now in the lead, which is very, very surprising, I think, to a lot of folks.
Shocking
Yeah. That he has gone from really single digits or low single digits all the way up. We'll see if that holds true. Burt Jones was right behind him, I think at about 18%, and Rick was at about 24%. We'll see if that holds true, but I think it's very clear what is indisputable is that these television ads, this blitz that Rick Jackson has come out of the gate with is leaving a mark, and it's making a difference. I think the question will be, can he sustain that momentum? And what does the Burt Jones camp, in terms of this ad touting his endorsement from President Trump, do they ramp that up? Does that even take it to another notch? And does this thing continue to stay tight the rest of the way?
When you broke the news last week, we discussed it on the air. My biggest question, again, I think Mr. Jackson has a lot going for him. His origin story, the rags to riches, the philanthropy. My biggest concern for his campaign, and I don't have a dog in this fight. This isn't an endorsement, but I was like, name recognition. Does the average Georgian Republican voter know who Rick Jackson is? Apparently they do, because these poll numbers show him with 24% of the votes in this primary poll. Burt Jones was at 16, Brad Raffensperger at 9, Chris Carr at 3. That's got to be a disappointing number for the Carr campaign.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the story is what do Brad Raffensperger and Chris Carr do now that Rick Jackson has come and made such a mark and is spending so much money in this race. I think it's going to be very important for them to make the right strategic decisions with the limited resources they had before. Now they're even more limited. And so I think that's going to be really critical for them to find ways to break through the noise and to get on people's radar. But clearly, again, these poll numbers are showing that when you spend $4 million in a week and are brand new and are the shiny object in the room, people are going to pay attention and they're going to look to see what's going on.
And imagine what's going to happen to his poll numbers when he starts buying ads on the Mark Arum show. That's going to be, is he saving that for the general where he knows it really makes the most impact?
Yeah, he would be smart and wise to do that. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So I had Eric Erickson on Monday following up. Again, this is a massive political story. And I asked Eric, he's been involved in campaigns and an election lawyer. What was happening behind the scenes to lead up to this Jackson announcement? Were there internal polls, quiet hush-hush polls? Did someone approach Mr. Jackson, or did he approach someone? Like, I'm fascinated. I want to see the documentary of the last 60 days before he made this announcement.
Yeah, look, and we talked about this last week on your show. As someone who has been that successful in the business world as Rick Jackson has, in terms of founding this $3 billion healthcare company that employs thousands and thousands of people, my gut is that you don't make a decision like this, a $50 million plus decision like this, without having some pretty good data and insight and polling into the decision that you're making, right? That would be true in
Sure.
business as it is in politics. I think that's likely the case. I think that the Jackson campaign probably saw, based on some of these indicators in this poll, for instance, that there is a wide swath of voters who are undecided, who don't know a lot about a lot of these candidates, right? And so I think their bet was, there is a lane here to define myself, to get my story out in a splash, in a blitz kind of fashion, and to try to target and pull some of those undecided voters. I think it's working so far. I think it's also illustrative of these other campaigns. There's a large segment of voters in Georgia right now who are not tuned in, who are not paying attention,
Sure.
but are going to start doing so very quickly.
It's foreign to us because we're so locked into what's going on
That's right.
politically. I'm going to make an analogy to fast food. I know it surprises you, to the Rick Jackson campaign. When Chick-fil-A thinks about introducing a new sandwich, they don't, announce it nationally. They have test markets. They're like, all right, we're going to do this in Nashville and Charleston and Pensacola. And we're going to see how, that's what goes on. I'm sorry, I had to bring it to fast food. But, there was obviously some test marketing going on before this $50 million admission of funds and declaration of funds would be declared in a race, that there had to have been some knowledge knowing, all right, this is going to work.
Some market research,
Yes,
if you will.
exactly.
Yes,
Thank
totally
you. That
agree.
was the word I was looking for. Also in this poll, President Trump's been poo-pooing the polls, showing his favorability rating dropping, even on the border, which was his strongest suit. But this latest poll shows that GOP voters in Georgia are still fully on the Trump train.
Yeah, that's right. And it's not super surprising. I think he was at about 85% favorability in that, somewhere along those lines. And that tracks, I think, where he's been at. I think the bigger question for Donald Trump is, what is his favorability? What is his image with general election voters, particularly, Mark, as we've talked about, those swing and independent suburban metro Atlanta voters? That's where he's got to, I think, shore up some of that favorability. And I think for Republicans at large, looking at November, that's an area potentially of concern. It is every cycle. It has been for the last few. And that's what I think general election Republicans are going to have to pay attention to.
Let's talk about that, because the primary is different than the general. And this is not just on the Republican side. This is on the Democratic side. If there's a primary in a Democratic election, every candidate races to be the furthest left. And I think we see, people racing to be the furthest on the right in primary season when it comes to Republicans. But then when we get to the general election, everyone kind of moves back to the middle, trying to get those suburban GOP voters that you're talking about. If it's Carr or Jackson or whoever wins the primary, are they going to start inching back toward the middle to hit those suburban voters?
You've got to do both. I think the best candidates and the best campaigns walk and chew gum at the same time. They have messages that resonate with the Republican base voters, but they also are talking about things that resonate with the general election voters. And I think right now that message is about affordability, right? We've talked about it on your show, whether you're talking about gas or groceries, whether you're talking about home ownership and housing affordability, when you're talking about insurance premiums. Those are things that resonate, that dominate, I would say, with both audiences. I think you saw a little bit of that in Rick Jackson's message. You're seeing that with Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones and talking about eliminating the state income tax. You're seeing that on the Democrat side as well. So I think that there is some consensus there, but I think it's the way that it's delivered and the amount of money that is behind that message to reach voters. That's what it's going to ultimately come down to.
I'm glad you brought up money. Let's end with this. Fundraising numbers. Are we getting any clarification on War Chest is available for those on the left and the right?
Yeah, absolutely. So recent fundraising numbers came out that really encapsulates the last 6 months. So we get a pretty big picture up and down the ballot. In general, Democrats are lagging behind Republicans. The front runner in the Democrat race for governor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, only has about $800,000 cash on hand. That pales in comparison to the $15 million that Burt Jones has cash on hand, the $50 million that Rick Jackson has on hand. But even Chris Carr and Brad Raffensperger have about $3 and $5 million respectively. So the GOP frontrunners, the GOP side is far outraising the Democrats. I think that will be a trend to watch come November, because if that disparity is there.
Why is that disparity there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think in terms of state politics, Republicans have been in control for the last 20 years. I think they have a Rolodex and a fundraising base that far outpaces that of Democrats. I think that's showing up, but also the Democrat side, particularly in the governor's race, is far more splintered. There are 6, 7, 8 candidates in that race trying to vie for the same pool of money. I think that's one. I think the exception is U.S. Senator John Ossoff, who continues to outpace all 3 of those Republican candidates.
Is it just a quick follow-up? Is it just the Democrats being lackadaisical, saying we've got the momentum, it's the midterms, we don't need to fundraise, we're gonna run away with this?
No, I think it's just that Republicans on the state level right now are far more adept and advanced at raising money. We'll see if that trend continues. I think come general election time, that could change. If the environment continues to sour for Republicans and trend Democrats' way, you may see more donors step up to the plate and at least hedge their bets with some Democrats.
Stephen Lawson, principal at Dentons.com, DENTONS.com. Great stuff as always, my friend.
Happy Wednesday. Good to be with you.